Because one of the biggest mistakes, I still hear it today from young people, oh, I don't have to worry because I'm still
young.
Yeah, and that is death to most people, because eventually you get old and then you're not young again. So it's a way of saying, when I talk about assets and liabilities, one of the most important things you have in your life is time. It's one of your greatest assets, or it's your liability. Now, I can't believe how bad it's gotten. I mean, it's here. We all know we're screwed. The question is, if it's going to get worse, what do we do? The good news is this: if it gets worse, you still have time to prepare.
And so if the dollar was no longer desired as the reserve, the value of the dollar on international exchanges would collapse. If they go back to a gold standard, they ain't going to take dollars for their stuff. We're going to have to give them gold, which we don't have, or we're going to have to produce stuff, which we can't, because we don't have the factories. We don't have the infrastructure, the labor force, the supply chains. So the dollar is going to collapse. And what's going to happen is all of these products that Americans take for granted are on the shelves when they want to buy something. They're all going to be gone.
In 1914, when World War I started, all the major powers went off the gold standard. They said, we got to keep our gold. This is real money, and this is how we're going to win the war. And the Bank of England was faced, and the Exchequer was faced with the same choice. Keynes was an advisor to the Exchequer. He said, don't go off the gold standard, stay on the gold standard. And the reason was that if you did that, you would preserve your reputation and preserve your credit. He said, the war is not going to be won with money or gold. It's going to be won with credit. But if you stay on the gold standard, you'll have the credit. And that's exactly what happened. Jack Morgan, Pierpont's son, organized huge loans for England and France and nothing for Germany. And England won the war. So the point is, Keynes got that right. Now, flash forward, 1925, he's talking to Churchill, and Churchill wants to go back to the gold standard. And Keynes is telling him, you got the price wrong. We can't go back at, £4.25 or whatever the exact rate was. We've got to devalue the sterling by half because we doubled the money supply to fight the war. Churchill ignored Keynes's advice, and they went into a recession, depression before the rest of the world. Flash forward 1944, you're at Bretton Woods. Keynes wanted a gold standard. And this isn't speculation. He wrote papers, he gave formal presentations. So 1914 is pro-gold. 1925, he's telling Churchill, you're nuts. You can't go back to a gold standard at this price. 1944, he's pro-gold again. I call that a pragmatist.
Our government has decided to weaponize our currency and our payments mechanism, taking advantage of the fact that the world is on a dollar standard to attempt to enforce American policy extraterritorially. Whether or not you agree with the direction of U.S. policy, I think there is no doubt that there are a lot of countries and a lot of people around the world that don't appreciate the extraterritorial nature of U.S. policy, and thus don't trust the U.S. government and the U.S. government's proxy, which is to say the U.S. dollar. The consequence of that is that I think gold will play an increasingly important role, or perhaps you should say resume an increasingly important role in global trade. I don't believe that that leads any country to a gold standard.
So the entire American standard of living is going to collapse. Now, it's not going to make that big a difference for a lot of the other countries outside the U.S. because they don't issue reserve currencies.
Because one of the biggest mistakes, I still hear it today from young people, oh, I don't have to worry because I'm still
young.
Yeah, and that is death to most people, because eventually you get old and then you're not young again. So it's a way of saying, when I talk about assets and liabilities, one of the most important things you have in your life is time. It's one of your greatest assets, or it's your liability. And being, I just turned 70, and I have friends who have nothing. I mean, they have zero. Now they've made a lot of money, but they have nothing here. They have nice houses, nice cars, 16 wives, 19 kids. I don't know what they have, but you know what I mean? And being young is great, except it can be a liability to you. Because when you're young, you're just having a lot of fun and life's exciting, it's new. if you want to learn about money, why don't you ask your best friend's father about money? And I said, why? That's Mike. So why ask him? He says, because Mike's father is an entrepreneur. And I said, what are you? He says, I'm an employee. I'm a government employee. And I went, oh, what's the difference? He says, the difference is an entrepreneur must know about money, or they're no longer entrepreneurs. And he says an employee doesn't have to know anything about money, because the government will take care of them, the company will take care of them. The big mistakes I see young people making is here. You know, they think about what they want to do, what they love. And what I'm saying to you, the millennials right now, invest in what you love. There's a very big difference. In other words, think about this side first. Most young people, or should I say, short-sighted people, they think this is it or this is it. But this is the one here. So when I was your age, I knew that the assets I wanted to acquire, the richest people own businesses. Over here, these guys are small business, self-employed. You're self-employed if you can't stop working. I stopped working years ago because I have businesses. I've had financial crashes, I've had people stab me in the back, but they're all good because I grow from it. That's spirituality. You know, people who are afraid of making mistakes, like they teach in school, they don't ever grow. Because spirituality is there's good and there's bad, there's right and there's wrong, there's up and there's down. Most people only want to be right, they only want to be positive. Well, you can't have that, that's not reality. Well, I wasn't poor by most people's standards, but I came from a family with a poor attitude, if you know what I mean. Because rich, poor, middle class, poverty starts with a fundamental attitude. Poverty is passed on. It's taught in your families. And middle class is taught in families. And so the people right now who are sitting at home, who are struggling financially or worried about money or unhappy, they may be making a lot of money, but unhappy with what they're doing. Metamorphosis, the definition is the evolution or the transformation from an immature form to an adult form. An immature form to an adult form. Metamorphosis is the same as a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. And Fuller always said there's nothing to predict a butterfly inside a caterpillar. So everybody listening right now, if you're struggling financially, just think of yourself as a little caterpillar. And this crisis is your cocoon. The question is, what do you emerge as? Do you emerge as a victim? You know, the world did that to me, and the capitalists are crook, the rich are bastards and all this stuff? Or do you say, oh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. The same as my health. I am ground zero for the coronavirus. All that it does is inspire me to get healthier. You're either going to get healthier and wealthier, or you're going to go bust. Your choice. It sits between your ears, your heart, your body, your mind, your spirit, your attitude. This could be the best thing that ever happened to you, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, if you turn on to a butterfly, or somebody will step on you like a little worm. It's your choice.